This is Mamuni. Thank you so much for being Amar Baba.
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to discuss how to solve a trial balance. So let's get started. Chalo, shuru kara jak. Now let's go through the problem. The following trial balance of Ma as on 31st March 2022 has been prepared by an incompetent person. Draw up a correct trial balance. The name of accounts are given here. The debit columns amounts are given here. And the credit columns amounts are given here. The total of debit column is 76,000. The total of credit column is 76,000. The trial balance did tally. But incompetent person কি করেছে? কিছু অ্যাকাউন্ট যেগুলো ডেবিট হওয়ার কথা সেগুলোকে ক্রেডিট করেছে বা যেগুলো ক্রেডিট হওয়ার কথা সেগুলোকে ডেবিট করেছে কারণ সাসপেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট এখানে এসছে ফার্স্ট উই গট টু ডিটেক্ট দ্য এরার্স সাসপেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট এখানে হওয়ার কথা কিনা ফার্স্ট উইল হ্যাভ টু গো থ্রু দ্য প্রবলেম উইল হ্যাভ টু ডিটেক্ট অল দ্য এরার্স অ্যান্ড দেন উইল হ্যাভ টু rectify the errors and then we'll see if suspense account should appear or not. Okay, now let's go through the first account. The first account is cash, which has been correctly written in the debit column, 45,000. Let's write cash, 45,000. Why we are writing 45,000 in the debit column? Because cash has a debit balance. Why? Because cash comes under real account. According to real account, what comes in is debit. Here, from the business point of view, cash comes into the business. So, cash account will be debited. Okay? So, let's see the next account. The next account is purchases, which has been written correctly in the debit column, 15,000. So, let's write purchases, 15,000. Purchases has a debit balance and that is the reason we have written in the debit column. Why purchases is debit? Because purchases comes under real account as well as nominal account. According to real account, what comes in is debit. Here, when goods are purchased, goods come into the business. So, purchases account will be debited. According to nominal account, all losses and expenses debit. Here, when goods are purchased, cash goes out. So, purchases is an expense for the business. So, purchases will be debited. Understood? Let's see the next account. The next account is sales, 25,000, correctly written in the credit column. So, let's write sales, 25,000. Sales, 25,000. Sales has a credit balance and that is the reason we are writing 25,000 in the credit column. Why sales is credit? Because sales comes under real account as well as nominal account. According to real account, what goes out is credit. Here, when goods are sold, goods go out from the business. So, sales account will be credited. According to nominal account, all incomes and gains credit. Here, when goods are sold, cash comes in. So, sales is an income for the business. So, sales will be credited. Understood? Let's see the next account. Bad debts. Bad debts has been wrongly written in the credit column, 2,000. So, let's rectify bad debt and write bad debt in the debit column. Okay? Bad debts. Bad debts has been wrongly written in the credit column. But we have rectified bad debts and we have written 2,000 in the debit column. Why bad debts is debit? Because bad debt comes under nominal account. According to nominal account, all losses and expenses debit. Here bad debts is a loss for the business. So bad debts will be debited. Understood? Let's see the next account. Next account is accrued income. Accrued income has been incorrectly written in the credit column. Accrued income should have been written in the debit column. So, let's rectify and write accrued income in the debit column, 3,000. Let's write accrued income, 3,000. Accrued income has a debit balance, and that is the reason we have written 3000 in the debit column. Why accrued income is debit? Because accrued income falls under personal account. According to personal account, the receiver of the benefit is debit. Here accrued income is the receiver of the benefit. So accrued income will be debited. So let's see the next account. The next account is closing stock, 10,000. Closing stock does not appear in trial balance. So this has been wrongly written in the credit column. Closing stock does not appear in the trial balance. Why? Because closing stock is the balance of unsold goods that are remaining from the purchases made during an accounting period. The value of total purchases is already included in the trial balance. So if we write closing stock again in the trial balance, the effect will be doubled. What is closing stock? Closing stock is a part of purchases, or closing stock is the balance of unsold goods that are remaining from the purchases made. So if we write closing stock again, that means we are writing purchases twice. Understood? So closing stock will not appear in the trial balance. Instead, we will write a short note below the trial balance for closing stock. We will write note, closing stock will not appear in the trial balance because it has not yet been brought into account. So এইভাবে তোমাদের নোট লিখতে হবে যদি ক্লোজিং স্টক ট্রায়াল ব্যালেন্সে আসে। ওকে, যদি ক্লোজিং স্টক অ্যাপিয়ার করে ট্রায়াল ব্যালেন্সে, you'll have to write a short note for closing stock. Why closing stock will not appear in the trial balance, but you will not include closing stock in the trial balance. Okay, so let's see the next account. The next account is outstanding expenses. Outstanding expenses is 6,000. Outstanding expenses has been wrongly written in the debit column. Outstanding expenses should have been written in the credit column. So let's rectify outstanding expenses and let's write outstanding expenses in the credit column. Okay, so outstanding expenses. Outstanding expenses has a credit balance. We have rectified and we have written 6,000 in the credit column. Why outstanding expenses is credit? Because outstanding expenses comes under personal account, rather representative personal account. So according to personal account, the giver of the benefit is credit. Here outstanding expenses is the giver of the benefit. So outstanding expenses will be credited. Understood? Let's see the next account. The next account is capital 35,000. So it has been correctly written in the credit column. So let's write capital 35,000. Capital 35,000. Capital has a credit balance, and that is the reason we have written capital in the credit column. Why capital is credit? Because capital falls under personal account. According to personal account, the giver of the benefit is credit. Here the proprietor is the giver of capital. So capital account will be credited. Understood? Let's see the last account. Prepaid expenses has been wrongly written in the credit column, 1,000. Prepaid expenses should have been written in the debit column. Okay, so let's rectify prepaid expenses and let's write 1,000 in the debit column. Prepaid expenses. $1,000. Prepaid expenses has a debit balance, and that is the reason we're writing 1,000 in the debit column. Why prepaid expenses is debit? Because prepaid expenses falls under personal account, rather representative personal account. According to personal account, the receiver of the benefit is debit. Here prepaid expenses is the receiver of the benefit, so prepaid expenses will be debited. Now let's calculate the total of debit column and the total of credit column, and let's see if suspense account will appear or not. Okay, inexperienced accountant suspense account trial balance নিয়ে এসছে, because inexperienced accountant could not detect the errors, and that is the reason he has opened a suspense account. and transferred the difference to the suspense account. Okay? Inexperienced accountant কি করেছে? Inexperienced accountant একটা suspense account খুলেছে because ও ট্রায়াল ব্যালেন্সটা ট্যালি করতে পারেনি, কারণ ও ডিটেক্ট করতে পারেনি এরার্সগুলোকে। তো সেই জন্য ও কী করেছে, যেহেতু ট্রায়াল ব্যালেন্স ট্যালি করছিল না, ওর ডিফারেন্সটা সাসপেন্স অ্যাকাউন্টে ট্রান্সফার করে দিয়েছে। ওকে, এবার আমরা দেখি সাসপেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট সত্যি আসবে কি আসবে না। লেটস সি আমাদের ট্রায়াল ব্যালেন্স উইথাউট সাসপেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট ট্যালি করছে কি করছে না। The total of debit column is 66,000 and the total of credit column is 66,000 as well. So the trial balance did tally because the total of debit column is equal to the total of credit column. তার মানে আমাদের সাসপেন্স অ্যাকাউন্টকে আনতে হচ্ছে না। সো সাসপেন্স অ্যাকাউন্ট কেন এসেছিল? বিকজ দ্য ইনএক্সপিরিয়েন্স অ্যাকাউন্টেন্ট ট্রায়াল ব্যালেন্সটা ট্যালি করতে পারেনি, বিকজ ও এরার্সগুলো ডিটেক্ট করতে পারেনি আর তাই রেকটিফাই করতে পারেনি। দ্যাট ইজ দ্য রিজন হিজ ট্রায়াল ব্যালেন্স ডিড নট ট্যালি। বাট আমাদের ট্রায়াল ব্যালেন্স ট্যালি করে গেছে বিকজ we have detected the errors and we have rectified all the errors. Understood? The trial balance did tally. I hope you understood. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your precious time. I sincerely hope this was helpful. And before I fade out, let me ask you a question. We all want to be cost accountants or CMAs or CAs or engineers or doctors or MBAs. But how many of us want to be good human beings? Please give it a thought. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe and stay blessed always.